Ben Shepherd exudes groove. Not only can you hear and feel it, but you can see it on the ear-to-ear smile on his face when he's laying it down. The New Zealand native has been energized by music since he was a kid, with the bass guitar being his focus. Ben eventually made his way to LA, where he's held down the groove for some incredible artists, such as Peter Erskine, David Archuleta, Ellis Hall, Kendrick Lamar, Ritenour, Chance the Rapper, Billy Childs, Patrice Rushen, Lorber, and many more. Ben also has his sights set on releasing his own material in the very near future. Inside MusiCast is pleased to welcome Ben Shepherd. Hey Ben, welcome to the show.
Hey man, good to be here. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Welcome. Glad you're here.
Yeah, man.
And it's Benjamin J. Shepherd.
That's right.
That's right. J for Jonathan.
All right.
Jammin'.
Yeah.
Or jammin'.
Jammin'. Hey, I don't mind that either, right?
Yeah. Anyway, that's your new name, man. Benjamin Shepherd. I love it.
I mean, really, the reason is because there is another Ben Shepherd who's a bass player. It's a bass player from Soundgarden.
Right. Yep.
Well, we won't.
So I'm like, let me go with Benjamin, my actual full name. You know. So.
Exactly.
It works out pretty well.
Yeah. Well, Benjamin, you know what? Yeah. When we last connected with you, it was here actually at the Jazz Kitchen in Indianapolis where you were doing a gig with Lorber. Sonny Emery was on drums, and you guys had a ball here. You know, it was a great time to meet you there, and we knew that this interview was going to happen. We just didn't know when, so we're just glad that
exactly. I know we've been trying to do it for a while, and here we are now finally.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, for all of us who follow you on social media, we all notice one thing that you know, and especially Eddie and I, when we noticed you playing with Lorber, you just look like you're just conveying like the fact that you're having so much fun when you're up there and when you're playing. And we love, you know, you giving us clips from your stage performance. And the most recent being a funky clip with Ellis Hall. Ellis is, you know, a huge performer. Yeah. How long have you worked with him?
Well, with Ellis, I've been working with Ellis since 2011, and it was when I was in college at Cal Arts. It was actually I got called up like last minute to fill in on his gig, and at that time he was using great bass player named Stan Sargent, played with Bobby Caldwell and you know all those cats, you know Lorber as well. So I was filling in for him, but it was like 2 days before the gig, and there were a lot of his tunes and a lot of cover tunes, that R&B cover tunes that I had to learn. And there were no charts, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, well, let's do it. So I drove over to Ellis's house, and I picked up he gave me a CD with all the music, and also, you know, just to hang and meet him. And
sure.
I mean, from that moment on, you know, we've just become such great, you know, friends, and you know, he's definitely, you know, like an uncle or father figure, you know, him and his wife, you know, and then have been like parents to me, you know, here in the United States, and then you know, moving forward, you know, I eventually moved in with him. I was living in his guest house, and so that was really cool, you know, like, you know, living with someone like that, and you know, hearing him practice and rehearse and just hanging out with him. But we've done so many gigs together all over town, and it's just always such a blast. He's definitely someone that is, you know, it's a real, you know, got that like kind of James Brown like performance stamina, like you know, you go from tune to tune, just like right into it. The energy is up there. Yeah, you just got to keep up with him. You know, he's not gonna stop.
You know, I mean, he comes from the Tower of Power, you know, energy, you know, incubator, and you know, he's wired like that, man. He's
exactly, it's in him. You know, I mean, even if he wasn't in Tower of Power, you know, it's still, you know, a part of who he is. You know, he's a real natural performer. So it's such a pleasure, and also he's just so much fun. Him and I, we just have so many, like, we crack so many stupid jokes and all that. And it's like, you got to see us both together and you'll understand. Like, for real.
Exactly. Well, let's talk a little bit about your 2019. You were really busy, and not only with Ellis here, but of course, legend Peter Erskine, Alicia Olatuja, and of course Ellis and Jeff Lorber, John Beasley, and our good friend and past guest, Steve Weingart.
Yeah.
And so, so my question is this, because you said that when you play with Ellis, there's no charts. And he said, he gives you the CD, you learn and feel the music. I mean, what kind of different levels? I mean, you're talking about, because you're a reader, you can play with Erskine and Lorber, who notates everything. What's the range of experiences regarding learning the music for these kind of people that you're playing with?
I think what it really it comes down to is just being flexible with every kind of situation, and knowing that not everyone is going to have clean charts or clean recordings of stuff, and I think that's where it really tests your musicianship as a musician, as a person, to really put forward the initiative in order to do what is needed to be able to get the job done and the gig done properly. So whether that's for with Ellis, because there's no charts, whether you have to make your own little chicken scratch or something, just to help you get by on the gig, and I did that for a lot of those tunes.
Gotcha.
The other thing that I see beneficial to, and especially, this is the thing that learning all those tunes, especially for Ellis's gig, was especially the cover R&B tunes, is what it did was it added to my repertoire of tunes that I now know. Yep. I know how to play, and on any gig, if someone calls it up, I can do it.
Yep.
So that's how I see it. Is that it's like it's all adding to the pot of just trying to get to that high level of musicianship, and then also on the other end, having the ability to be able to sight read and read complex lead sheets or charts or written out bass lines that someone might, like Billy Childs or John Beasley or Lorber or whoever Alicia might give me.
Yeah.
So I like to be able to do it all, because at the end of the day, it's music, and I'm going to take the initiative to do what is needed to do in order to fulfill that music making process.
Yep, that makes sense. Yeah, perfect.
So it's just how I present myself. Is okay, I know that I have to put in the extra work, and that's just the thing that you understand when you're in this, business, and that's what makes you stand out from others, instead of just getting by and doing the basics, what's needed. But if you take that extra step to actually be prepared and stand out, then you would have these long relationships with people like this, and you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, exactly.
I know I kind of went off a little there.
No,
but
that's fine.
Kind of just elaborating on that, kind of how I feel about that.
No, that totally makes sense, because your key word on everything is flexibility, adapting, and you're right. The final product is it goes into your suitcase of repertoire that it just keeps on growing and growing. So we get it,
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then, after a while, when you've been playing tunes with an artist for a while, you obviously internalize into where you don't need to look at the charts,
Exactly.
And that's always cool. So.
Well, one great legend that brought you in, and literally, I heard we saw some of the videos on YouTube was where the Dr. Projects with, of course, legendary Weather Report drummer Peter Erskine, And
yeah.
he basically said, and I think you heard this too, is that, he deliberately brought you in to give you a platform. And I think that is so unselfish to have a guy like Peter Erskine, a guy like, because you guys did your, we're talking about the second Dr. album, of course, with him.
Yes.
And it was recorded at Sweetwater Studios in Fort Wayne, not too far from here in Indianapolis,
That's right. Exactly.
So it was, on this project, it was you, Peter, John Beasley, amazing guy, and Bob Shepard on sax. So tell us, tell us about the connection to Peter Erskine. How did your paths cross? Yeah. That's really cool story, huh?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, and first of all, I mean, it was definitely. I mean, I grew up on Weather Report.
Mm-hmm.
I keep saying to Peter now and then, I keep reminding him, I'm the biggest Weather Report fan. No one else.
Sure.
I am. Right? You just don't know it because I'm real cool about it. So really, of course, when I got the call to play with him, I was totally just fanboying, just freaking out. So, but really, that's all. That's through John Beasley, who really, who I've been working with for a number of years now, and he's a great friend and mentor to me, and he got me a lot of work and introduced me to so many amazing musicians that I now have great relationships and working relationships with. He's definitely a big key figure in this whole thing, and I met him through Lee Ritenour when I was playing with Lee a couple of years ago. There was a couple of shows that Dr. with Peter had already started, and originally with Yannick Gwizdala on bass on the very first record.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, they called me in to do a couple of shows with them, and I was like, "Oh yeah, absolutely!" I learned the music like the back of my hand and all that. And I was also wondering, it's like, are we going to do like any Weather Report tunes? And I mean, I was totally cool with like, either way, but it'd be cool to do at least one, and we did. It was a tune called Speechless, and it's a total fretless bass feature, which is at the first, it's definitely very intimidating because it's like, okay, this is Peter Erskine, he played, him and Jocko, they were best buddies, So it's like, he's played with the person that I'm about to like try to like sound like, what I mean?
Right.
It's like it's so weird, but it's like I don't hear those tunes any other way, It's like I have to, do the whole, because I grew up with Weather Report, I have to do the whole, not that I can play like him, but I have to do the little Jocko nuances, because to me that's what makes those tunes, pop. They give me that certain feeling,
When you think about an album like that, and that track Speechless, I mean, you're talking about a track and an album that has basically lasted 35 years, man. And I'm like,
right.
It's
exactly.
It's pretty phenomenal.
Longer than I've been around.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm with Peter, we talk about, I get all the Weather Report stories out of them. I mean, they're just endless, all the Jocko stories. And I live for those, but it's like I sometimes feel like I was there, even though it happened long before I was even around.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I feel the nostalgia when he tells these stories. It's a real, and there are definitely so many moments that I would just like sometimes just bawl out crying as well, because it's just like it's deep or it's heavy. Even sometimes there's been a couple of times when we played Speechless. There was one that the last. Actually, we did a show. It was last year. It was at the Baked Potato, and we were doing 2 nights there.
Uh-huh.
And on the very last night, it landed on Jocko's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And so we played Speechless.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, before the tune Peter, he dedicated it. He's like, this one goes out to my boy. John Francis Pistorius.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, because there's a bunch of other bass players in the room there. I mean, Rick Farabracci is like there. Who else? I think Chris Buck was there. Like cats who have like seen Jocko in person, and they're watching this kid who was like long after Jocko tried to play the Jocko song. But it was such a beautiful moment, and I mean that was probably the best that we had played it. And I mean that was definitely a time where I was just like, I was crying at the end of it because it was. That's something that left me speechless just because
literally.
I mean, this is music that, really, I mean, it's part of my childhood, like, as I've said many times. So it's like it was a whole different experience, especially to play it with someone who was there.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was there at that time, and there's this, I mean, after this, you'll have to see on YouTube, but there's this 1 minute quote of Joe Zawinul, talking about the loss of Jocko Pastorius.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he says we shouldn't cry that these people are gone, or this person is gone. We should cry. We should be happy that it was in the first place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was like. You have to look at it. When I saw that, when you said that, I was just like, done.
Right.
Destroyed.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, wow. Yeah. Like that, And so it's the same with Peter as well, Yeah. It's really heavy, And so it's such a beautiful thing to be around someone like Peter and to have a great friendship, relationship with him and to go, it's really, like a dream come true,
Yeah.
It's really, it means a lot.
Well, I've really enjoyed both of the Peter Erskine and the Dr. Band projects. The second album was titled Second Opinion, and it was released, I think, around 2017. And it features you on bass on this one, on the recording. And I wanted to stop and play a track from it that I think really highlights your work rather well. And it's called 1111. And this track, again, features our guest today, Ben Shepherd, on Inside MusiCast. I think I just realized that the first time that I saw you perform, Ben, was actually here at the Jazz Kitchen when you were here with the Dr. Tour with Peter Erskine.
Right, yes. And that's when I just joined the band as well.
That was 2017, and that was you and in the same band, you and John Beasley and
that's right.
Yeah. So and I the funny thing is that I knew what to expect from Peter Erskine because his resume, and I've been following him for years.
Oh yeah.
But I think I spent most of the night with my eyes on you and on John because you guys were just blowing me away, and that was my first exposure to you. And then when I met you here in Indy with Jeff Lorber, I enjoyed watching it then too. But we want to kind of turn the table here for a second, and we do want to talk about you and maybe a little past here. You were born in Wellington, New Zealand, in a little suburb called, I think it's pronounced Tawa. Is that correct?
Yes. Just a little suburb. Yeah, just north of Wellington.
Yeah, and the first instrument you picked up was drums at the age of 5, and then you picked up bass a little later on. And when did your parents start you off studying, or tell us about the progression of your music path when you were young?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, so as you mentioned, yes, it was drums at 5, and then when I was around 7. My dad had played the Stanley Clarke record.
Okay.
And it was this record from the late 80s called If This Bass Could Only Talk.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great record, with like Gregory Hines, they do like a duet and all that. So killing. And when I heard that, I was just like, oh. And I was, this is like 7-year-old kid. I'm just like, interesting. I really liked it. I liked how it was percussive. I liked how it was melodic. He was playing like some chords and all that on it. Because I was already like really into the drums. Because I really loved rhythm. But I guess I was hearing harmony and melody as well, and I couldn't really do that on the drums. And when I heard the bass, when I heard Stanley Clarke doing this on the bass, then from then on, I became more curious. And my parents started realizing that I was getting curious about this bass guitar thing. And so, and my dad, he plays guitar and he also plays a bit of bass. And he would tell me how he used to play bass in this band, like back, in India, where my parents are from. And I used to do a lot of gigs and all that. And I said, okay, well, where's your bass? There's no bass lying around in an attic or something, So I used to just play on his electric guitar, on the lower strings, and pretending that it was a bass and all that. But, I was never satisfied because it wasn't like bass register. It was never low enough.
Right.
And then eventually I come home from school one day, and then there's a bass guitar and there's an amp, sitting in my bedroom, and I'm just like, oh my god, so I'm freaking out. And by then I already knew how to play a certain number of songs on the bass because the school I was with that I was at, there was a bass guitar there, and my class teacher was also a bass player as well, and he was running the school band.
Yeah.
So he was showing me some stuff. And then because I was doing that, my parents, they got me the bass. And then from then I was just practicing every day. And then when I get to 11, 12 years old, at this point I'd been into bassists like John Entwistle and Roger Waters and who else? Dirk Lance from, Incubus, the classic Incubus lineup. I was really into a lot of rock kind of bass, like Jack Bruce, of course.
Mm-hmm.
I was into a lot of rock kind of bass players, a lot of melodic bass players of that kind of era. Roger Glover from Deep Purple, Tom Hamilton, Aerosmith. So there was a lot of that in my parents' collection, a lot of classic rock. Michael Anthony. And then I got into jazz because of the music teacher at school wanted to start a jazz band. So then that's when, then I started checking out my dad's kind of jazz records. And then, that's when I got back into Stanley Clarke I was just like, oh yeah, Stanley Clarke, yeah. And then I'm just like, oh my God, this is this is a whole other world, you know. And then Stanley, and then this weather report, this Jocko dude. Let's put this Jocko. Oh my God! Oh God! What is happening? You know, it's like, well, you know, like hearing all these other sounds on the bass, you know, and then. And then, you know, and then there was a Marcus Miller thing. And it's like, ooh, that's like some really nice slapping. And then Victor Wooten, and what the hell? How can you play that fast? Slapping, like, what? You know, like, so then, you know, you could just imagine this, like, early teenager, you know, like 13, 14 at this point, just like listening to just wearing out these records, you know, of all these bass players, and just like my mind is just exploding, and I'm just like, all I can think about is bass, you know, every day, you know, that's all. And, you know, it was amazing because it's like I learned so much technique, and I was listening to so many different bass players and reading all these, you know, the Classic Bass Player magazine and seeing all these players, and then going to like the public library and getting all these records of all these bass players on there, and like, oh yeah, you know, so like Yellow Jackets, you know, Jimmy Haslip, you know, and then of course John Patitucci was, you know, the 6-string bass and all, and I'm like, okay, I need to get a 6-string bass. It just, you know, it just like goes down a huge like rabbit hole and just snowballs, and like and at this point it's just like, yeah, I'm super serious about playing music. I'm really serious. And my parents are seeing that, and they're like, okay, well, you know, we need to figure this out, you know. Eventually I start playing in some like extracurricular like ensembles outside of my high school. And my high school had in New Zealand, Tower College. In New Zealand, we call high school college. It's really interesting. I don't know why, but that's just how it is. So at Tower College, you know, they had a really good music program. Like they have really good choral groups, you know, barbershop quartets. And so I was doing a lot of singing and all, and that really helped with just my overall musicianship. I think that really helped with my ear training as well. You know, I have perfect pitch, so I was able to, you know, learn things really fast as well, especially like learning like vocal parts, you know, and whatnot. So that really helped, you know, and then also sight singing as well. Like I think, you know, singing in the choir is really important. It's definitely helped a lot with my musicianship, just like as a ensemble player and just being in a group and blending in, you know. So there was a lot of that. So, but outside of school, I was involved in a giant like concert band. It was the Wellington School's symphonic band, and it was just for Wellington High School students, and we would meet every Wednesday evening, and it was led by this gentleman named Owen Clark from the Royal New Zealand Air Force Band, and it was his whole program, and then, you know, we would do concerts all over the country and all that. It was really great because that also got more of my ensemble playing onto where it's like, okay, this is very reminiscent of something like playing on like a movie date, like a session, you know? Which I just did the other day for great film composer Thomas Newman.
Oh, wow.
And that was a 2-date session. And when I was on that session, I was thinking of like, wow, playing in these concert bands like back then has really helped, because this is the thing. I used to be the worst reader ever. It was a big weakness of mine. My biggest strength was having perfect pitch and just learning songs really fast, learning them, just hearing it one time through. So I was able, after time playing in these ensembles, I was able to get my reading strength up. And because of having perfect pitch, I'm listening to everyone around me, what they're playing, and I'm matching it with what I'm seeing on the chart. And that's how I taught myself how to read music and how to sight read, you know? So it was kind of a surreal moment, just like, wow, you know, from doing that at like from age 13 all the way to 17, being in that ensemble really was so beneficial.
Absolutely.
Because you put it to work, you know. So yeah, there was that, and then it's just like, yeah, I'm getting really serious about doing this. I want to, like, at that point, you know, I'm thinking of moving out of New Zealand to like pursue, you know, like going to then all that, and you know, the future. So, you know, my mom and I, we really researched colleges out here in the U.S. and then we took a trip and visited them, and you know, I got into New England Conservatory and Cal Arts, and I picked Cal Arts. So I moved out here, and you know, and then that's the whole other chapter. You know, I essentially I did the 4 years at Cal Arts. I didn't end up graduating. I ended up getting this big, you know, pop touring gig. And it was like, you know, I wanted to go out on the road and, you know, make some money and really do this performance experience. And it was a really great decision that I made.
Mm-hmm. What was that gig?
It was with David Archuleta.
That's what I thought you were referring to. Yeah.
Yes, and he, you know, he's American Idol singer, and it was such a great. It was a great gig, and great musicians, and David did such an amazing musician and performer and singer. You know, so it was really, and that was also a really good chance for me to also get in my singing chops as well, because I hadn't done it in a while, and that was another moment where I was like, you know, singing in the choirs really helped now, because now I'm like singing background vocals and all that and playing, and it was just adding more and more to this, like, okay, musicianship thing. So that was my first big pop, you know, my first big tour, really, and we toured all over the world. Yeah, and
it was.
And then from then on is when I really got into the scene in Los Angeles and started meeting people, and then it just snowballed from there. You know, so to where I am now.
So you were baptized into the global stage with Archuleta, and I mean that's a huge the enormity of that kind of a gig for a guy like you at that time is pretty phenomenal. So what did you take away, you know, from that global tour? Because I mean, what did you garner? That must have been a huge experience for you.
Yeah, well, you know, what I took away was, obviously I got to see, you know, the ins and outs, the logistics of putting on a tour like for, you know, a pop artist. What it really goes into, you know, and understanding that, you know, it's not all this like glam life that some people make it out to be. It's like, you know, no, there's a lot of hard work going on. There's also like there's a lot of stressful work going on too. You know, rehearsals, you know, catching planes, or just you know, or equipment, that kind of thing. You know, or getting sick. You know, I did during one of the tours we were in Vietnam, and I ended up in the hospital. I had food poisoning.
Oh no!
And that was quite the experience, you know. But I mean, but it was actually the medical, you know, I was well taken care of and all that. It was totally fine, but it was quite the experience, though. Yeah. Being like, you know, so just understanding that, like, you know, the things that you have to do, you know, in order to look after yourself, you know, when you're away from home. It was definitely a lot of growing up for me. So, you know, it was like, it's my early 20s, and, you know, I'm out traveling the world, you know, on my own. I'm with a group of people, but really I'm on my own, you know, I'm having my own experience. So I think, you know, what I also was definitely, I was able to get in touch with my independence as well, you know, as a person, because I was kind of going a little crazy when I was at school, because I had this big urge to really want to perform and like play, and that wasn't necessarily being fulfilled. You know, I just was tired of being in the classroom. So, and then also the people that I met the other musicians I got to meet through David's gig as well, was really like a lot of contacts and people that I work with now. So there's so many benefits, and then the relationship with Ibanez guitars, that was my first endorsement. And I'm still with Ibanez, of course. They've been really great. So it's definitely a lot of great things, out of that. Yeah. And just also, just adds to the resume as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Hey, you probably know a lot of the top bassists in L.A. Of course, you've met Jimmy Haslip.
Oh, yeah.
But have you ever had time to hang with Jimmy a little bit? He's really a cool guy.
Yeah, I haven't really had time to that. We text each other like now and then, which reminds me actually, because I have a show coming up with my band, and I usually send him when I have a show with my band coming, I always send him a flyer, just being like, hey, just in case you're in town or you're not busy, come and hang at my show,
Yeah, exactly.
I always, send it to all those cats, So, but I haven't really hung out with him, we're all, we're all busy, different, schedules, but, I definitely need to have a hang with someone like him, because, he's definitely a huge early influence for me. And of course, I've filled in for him numerous times on different gigs. So, but yes, he is such a sweetheart, every time I've talked to him, and absolute monstrous player, one of the best for sure, and that the fact that, he plays, the strings upside down is also so amazing too.
Yeah. You were just at NAMM recently, and we were just curious, what were you there for? Do you endorse a specific bass or strings? Is that right?
Endorsements I do have, yes. The string company is GHS Strings.
Yep.
So, Jonathan Moody, he's a great dude, great bass player as well. He's been really cool. And then there's also, Ibanez basses, of course.
Yeah.
I've been using some of the Trickfish stuff. I really love their preamp, their 2-channel trilobite preamp that I just use on everything. It's such a great piece of equipment, and it's so light, so I can just put it in the gig bag. And I travel all over the world with it, and it's my sound, and I can get that sound out of any rig that I plug it into. It's really great.
That's cool.
So there's that, and then I use the Groove Gear stuff. Duo strap, which I need to get a new one off because I just busted my and the fret wrap and AccuGroove cabinets. Mark Wright, who's an incredible luthier and inventor, but I don't think he's there this time around. But he's been there the last couple of times, so. There's definitely a bunch of them. There's some other stuff I want to just check out as well. I'm always, looking at, new, of course, new instruments, but just to see what is out there. There's always new cool things, and then pedals, of course. I love pedals, and just seeing how the technology progresses. Roland, they're always doing something really innovative. I don't have anything with Roland, but it's every time they've put something out, I've always been like, damn, I wouldn't have thought of that at all. And it's so it's genius, and it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's just great to see people down there, just to, with friends who live out of town that you don't really get to see a lot. It's just cool to hang out and, just joke around,
Exactly.
I think when it comes to bass players at NAMM, I think one of the big attractions every year is getting your picture taken with Lee Sklar flipping the bird.
Exactly.
So if you've not done that yet,
I have yet to do. I need to do that, man. If he was really really smart, he would charge people for doing that. You know,
I think a long time ago, Eddie and I had him on the show. We've had him on several times, but he's one of our favorites. But he told us he was going to make like a coffee table book of some kind,
right?
Of just thousands of photos of people flipping the bird with Lee, and I think
right, exactly, and like all these like big like stars, like music stars, country music stars, like James Taylor and like I think even like Linda Ronstadt probably, like
I'm sure that's in his collection somewhere.
Yeah, man, like for real. I mean, I would buy it.
Yeah, I would too.
I totally would.
That's funny.
So funny.
Hey Ben, tell us something here. We've had a lot of bass players and session players, as you know, over our past 15 years or 14 years, that is, in this business here. But when it comes down to, other than conflict of schedules and that type of thing, what are some producers or artists who hire guys like you for touring or a session? What do they have to see in you other than word of mouth or whatever? Is it what makes you a call list person? What makes them select you for their project?
Well, hopefully, that they're selecting me because I am a solution to their problem, or whatever. It doesn't have, that just to put it in like real simple terms, but someone, who is going to come in, play the music, not just play the music, but be the music. So playing it dynamically, emotionally, and also having done the homework. If there wasn't any homework, then being able to come in and just sight read, but at the same time making it sound like that you're not sight reading.
Exactly.
And that's something that I have worked on for quite a while, is being that kind of hybrid to make it sound like that I'm not reading. So it still sounds like, it doesn't sound, because there's that whole classic thing that, you're just stiff, if you if you sight read or something, it's like, and I'm trying to break that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm trying to break those stereotypes.
Right.
And also the fact that, I'm a friendly person. I'm not going to give you, any trouble. And also, within reason, it's like if you want me to play a certain way or a certain style or a certain sound or like a certain player, I can do that.
Yep.
So it's that key word, just being flexible for what, the artist or the composer wants.
Exactly.
And that's something that I take a lot of pride in being able to do.
Mm-hmm.
And having the right sound, having the right equipment, being on time, having the right attitude about the whole, and being social with everyone, not being obnoxious, being a genuine, good person, really showing that you care about your job and about this person's music and about what they do as well.
Yeah.
And again, I take a lot of pride in that, and hopefully that's why someone, would want to hire me for their gig.
Right.
It's also like I look up to players, like John Patitucci, especially players that double on both, upright and electric bass. John Patitucci, he's definitely a classic example of someone who can play any kind of gig, who can come in and read and has this great attitude and is just like, yeah, man, let's do it. Let's play. Let's go, like all about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's who I am, and that's why, when I'm playing music, it should be joy. I have so much joy, and I like to show everyone that.
And you do.
So, and that's another reason why I'd also hope that, other, people hire me as well, because, I like to show that I'm having a joyous time playing.
You've got the best smile for a bassist in the business.
I know.
I was thinking, hey, I'm it's not as good as Nathan East, though.
He's got a pretty good smile too.
Him, man.
You're right. You and Nathan. No, you guys are right up there, man. You're doing really good. That's good.
Well, hey, Ben, everyone knows, obviously, a great rhythm section is key for any project. But, and when, like we talked about when we met you last, you were playing with Sonny Emery, who's just an amazing drummer.
Yeah.
But you've played with other great drummers too, and have there been any that you've really appreciated or that stand out for you outside of say Peter Erskine and some of the others you've played with?
Sure. I mean, there are so many. I mean, drummers are definitely some of my my favorite musicians. Drummers and keyboard players, but drummers I have like a certain relationship with. There are a lot of them that are like some of my best friends. But and some that I've just been like always enamored, that whenever I get to play with them. But, cats like, especially legendary cats like, Dave Weckl, Simon Phillips, even Joe LaBarbera, who I have a little jazz trio with, Joel Taylor, another one, Kurt Covington is always fun to play with, from Tribal Tech. I love him. Who else? Cats in LA. Gene Coy, who's a phenomenal drummer. We probably played every kind of gig together. He's like my brother. We have that when we play music, we're like connected at the hip. Yeah. We can play we can just play and then suddenly just like throw everything up in the air and just mess it all up, and then we'll just suddenly just come and just land on one whenever we want to. It's like some sort of like telepathy,
Sure.
It's so funny, and he's a great friend of mine too. So Gene is great, and then drummer in my band, Channing Holmes, he's a tap dancer, so he's like a tap dancer on drums, So there's a lot of interesting, feels that's great. And who else? Kendrick Scott has been a great person I've played with in the past with Monkestra. Terry on Gully, another great drummer who plays in Monkestra and who's incredible. Marvin Smitty Smith recently did a Monkestra gig as well, and there are so many. There's so many. I could just go on forever. I could talk a whole episode about all my favorite drummers.
You should do that sometime.
Like I really could, because there are so many that are just and Eric Valentine is another one.
Oh yeah, he's been on our show.
Yeah, great. We used to live together as well.
Oh really?
He's someone I definitely got a lot from. In terms of like really like playing in the groove, like playing pocket, because I was very choppy and all that, but he like solidified me. Not in terms of just like sitting me down and going, "Hey man, you got to play the groove," but just watching his work ethic.
Yeah,
it's like, wow, that's very disciplined.
That's funny,
and that's the reason why.
That's funny you mentioned Eric Valentine, Mr. Chocolate.
Yes.
I just found a video last night that I actually shot it. It was when Steve Lukather, he went out with Steve Lukather maybe 10 years ago or 12 years ago on his solo tour, and I found this video of that I shot during the rehearsal, the sound check, and Eric gets up and walks away from his drums, and a few seconds later, I've never seen Steve do this before, but Steve Lukather goes over and sits down at his kit and starts playing.
Right.
And I shot that, and it's like, you never see Steve Lukather behind a drum kit, but he's actually pretty good too.
Yeah, man. All those guys, when they'll play a beat, like they'll have their beat that they're good at. I have my little beat that I'm good at. It's like, that's the thing.
It's funny.
It's so much fun when you can do things like that.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Ellis Hall. He's a multi-instrumentalist too, and sometimes on his gig, he'll do a thing where he'll go around to each instrument and do a solo on each instrument. So funny.
That's great.
Hey, at the very beginning of the interview, you mentioned that you went to, of course, California Institute of Arts to study.
Yeah.
But you've come sort of full circle now, because you're on staff to some capacity there as a professional. And tell us about going back to school and teaching others and letting other young musicians learn about this industry. What's that connection?
So now I'm then at Cal Arts, California Institute of the Arts. Because I studied there with three phenomenal bass players. Charlie Hayden, God bless him.
Yes.
Alphonso Johnson and Derek Old.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was heaven for me, really. I mean, those three cats. And I've been doing some substitute teaching for Alfonso, like when he goes out on the road. And so that's been, quite interesting, because I haven't been up to that school in quite a while. So it was quite, interesting, being up over there and, seeing some old, faculty I haven't seen in a while. Yeah. But then also just like, just seeing the new generation of students coming in, and it's quite interesting. Like, it's like, they all have like checked out my stuff. They know, they've all seen me play and all that. So they ask a lot of, questions of, like, how do I get, certain gigs, or, it's usually like work related, because they're thinking about, what are they going to do when they get out of college.
Yeah.
And, and I mean, look, I do the whole cut and dry thing, as honest as because it's like but at the same time, it's like I'm not going to discourage, because you have to understand, I mean, obviously in this business, I mean, it's a very difficult business, and you have to understand, there are sacrifices you have to make in order to fulfill your dreams,
yes, right.
Or what you want to do. So, and if you aren't prepared to do that, then, you might need to rethink some things, So there's that. There's a whole, whole level of honesty and whatnot, and but then also just teaching. That what I found was like there was a lot of bass players in my generation that weren't really great readers, or specifically doubling on both electric and upright bass.
Sure.
Like, well,
right.
They were like either stronger on one or the other.
Yeah.
Or some could kind of read music but don't do gigs that read music, so they don't do it anymore. So it was kind of hard for me to like get subs or anything for gigs. So it's just encouraging the new generation of doing that. Like, don't lose those skills of like, of learning to read music, and also like playing both instruments well, not just sticking to one thing.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep,
exactly.
Because you become more valuable as an all-round musician, and if you want to get work. And that's the thing I say with the students that say, well, how do I get this gig, or what's this? Well, like, you're not playing upright bass. You need to start playing upright bass. If you're talking about these gigs or this kind of work that you want to get, you need to do both.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's just how it is. And then also just the concept of, there's students who want to get into soloing and all that. So there's that whole concept of, the art of the bass solo, because, I mean, bass players, we sometimes get the short end of the stick, like there's we get the butt end of the joke. So, when the bass solo happens, that's when, everyone starts talking or whatever,
Yeah, but drummers tell us the same thing.
Oh, man, let's change all that. Let's band leaders ain't going to give the bass player a bass solo because it's boring. Or no, man, let's do a thing where we do the art of the bass solo. It can be just as exciting as a horn player taking a solo or a drummer. It's how you do it. So encouraging a new thing in like exciting bass solos.
Exactly. Right. Well, you've had such a vibrant career, already, and you're still young, and you've still got so much more to look forward to. And my question is, are you planning on releasing some of your own material, like launching a solo career or doing something with your own material that you've written and want to get out there? Is that something that's on the horizon?
Yes, absolutely. And part of your whole what you're saying before, 2019 and those. Because 2019 was definitely it was very busy year, and it was a great year of like new relationships and new collaborations, music wise.
Yeah.
And also at the same time, it was me doing gigs under my name and with my band, and which was been really great. And it's definitely been time because I've done so many sideman gigs, which is great. I love doing sideman work. I love playing other people's music. I love playing with other people on their gigs. But it's definitely you get to that point where it's like you want a taste of that yourself, and also you have an idea on how you would run a band and how you would run a show, or like how you would want to be featured.
Yeah.
So, and also, I mean, it was always a thing that I was going to do anyway, from the very beginning that I started playing music. It's like, yes, I am, I'm also a solo artist as well. I'm definitely going to do that. So so 2019, I was doing a lot of shows with my band around LA. We're playing the Baked Potato, Blue Whale, Music Head Gallery, Sam First Spot. Like almost every month I was doing a show somewhere in LA, and it was great. It was definitely a good way of building up, a following more, for my own music. And then also, because I'd record every show on my phone, and then just listening back and just going, okay, that worked, or that didn't work, or this is what I would do, like I'm really into post-analysis kind of thing of my performances, I think it's very vital, I'm very critical of myself, but I can be very forgiving as well. Like I can understand that, okay, if there was something that did sound good, I won't go all the way and just bash myself, like some people I know, unfortunately. Yeah. So for 2020, is going to be the year that I'll be releasing, music under my name.
Great.
And so I plan on, doing an EP and releasing that this year, and that will feature some different musicians on it, but it's mainly with the Benjamin J. Shepard Quartet or band, but I'll have like some different cats on different tracks. But
that's awesome.
Mainly in that band, it's there's a lot of lead bass. Like I'm not playing piccolo bass. I'm playing my 6-string. My keyboard player, he'll play synth bass behind my bass solos or some of the tunes where I play the bass melody, and it's really like Stanley Clark and Roy Ayers.
Yeah.
Met because I have a vibraphone player in my band. One of the greatest vibraphone players around, Nick Mancini.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. I never thought that I'd have vibraphone in my band, but when I started playing with Nick a couple of years ago, just playing gigs with him around town, like with his band, different bands and other people's bands, we always had this really cool blend, with my bass and and what he was playing. Because I play a lot of like chordal stuff on my bass, and just the timbre, the two timbres together, it blended really well. Like we could both play chords together, and it would be this really nice lush. Because I wouldn't be getting in his way, and he wouldn't be getting in my way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they're two different two different registers.
Right.
So that's definitely a big element of my music and my sound, and with my band is that myself, the vibraphone, and then also the keyboards, like the piano, we'll all be playing chords at the same time. We're not stepping on each other, but it's this nice, lush, kind of bed, and to where it makes it sound like there are more players in the band than there really is.
Yeah.
So it's definitely quite a unique thing, and that I've been working on for quite a while, and still continue to do so. But just honing, my sound, because I'm really close with my own sound as a bass player and as an individual musician, but just getting the sound of my ensemble, my music together, and it's been really nice to work on, and it's definitely different from the whole sideman thing. So yeah, you'll definitely see some music coming out this year for sure under my name. So it's going to be really exciting, and I'm really looking forward to it.
We're excited about that. Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Ben, thanks so much. This has been wonderful. We're glad to finally catch up with you and have you on the show.
Thank you so much. This is really good. I really appreciate the chats and all that. And I'm not. Hopefully, I'll be out there in Indy sometime soon.
Yeah, and we'll definitely keep in touch, and we'll want to know about your new music when it's time to release it.
Oh, no doubt.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I mean, you guys will be, like one of the first to hear about, you'll get that when you get that email from me, like, new album coming out, but can't give it,
We'll be all over it.
No doubt. We'll be all over that stuff.
All right. Well, have a good rest of your week, and Happy New Year to you, and thanks for being on the show.
Same to you guys.
Thanks, man. We'll talk to you later, man.
Absolutely. Thank you, fellas.
All right. Bye-bye.
Special thanks to Ben Shepherd for joining us on this episode of Inside MusiCast. Inside MusiCast is a collaborative effort of music lovers worldwide, and our team includes Brian Pearson in Chicago, Kim Riley in South Florida, Scott Gross in Tampa, Mikhail Engstrom in Stockholm, Sweden, Scott Sheriff in Nashville, Don Breitup in Los Angeles, Loretta Sassaman in Seattle, Yinka Oyelese in New Jersey, and Arnaud Leger in Paris, France. Be sure to check out our newly rebranded Inside MusiCast website that includes a fresh look, guest search options, a new podcast audio player, downloadable episodes, Inside MusiCast Radio, and our new studio tours feature, with photos and information about some of our guest studios, workspaces, and gear. Find it all at InsideMusicCast.com. Inside MusiCast is powered by Earshot Audio Post and Cabello Associates. For Eddie Cabello, I'm Rick Such. Thanks for your support of Inside MusiCast.